Salvete omnes. Welcome back to the AP Latin live stream for today. We're excited to have you with us. I'm Jenny Luongo, and I'm joined as always by...
Salvete omnes. I'm Ben Johnson, and we have something today. We have a nice little interactive activity, and we're going to have Jenny put it up. It is not a Kahoot, though, unfortunately.
No Kahoot today, but I wonder if they were watching yesterday and they know what we're going to be kind of testing them over again. You can go to www.menti.com and use the passcode septemocto6 duo to get into this quiz. If you've been thinking, what is it that we went over yesterday? It was, of course, the ablative case. So we're going to be doing more with the ablative today. I think tomorrow, Ben, we're going to try to do some genitive and dative stuff, maybe some accusative too. Who knows? But something other than the ablative, because we've spent a couple days on the ablative. But today we'll go over the remaining uses of the ablative that we did not have a chance to finish up yesterday because there's so many uses of the ablative.
Yeah. I think we had like 8 yesterday, and we have 7 today.
Yeah, but just think how horrible that would have been if we had done 15 yesterday. I mean,
every grammar kid's dream, right? To cover every single use of the ablative.
Every use of the ablative.
Right.
Yeah.
On YouTube right now, I'm going through like the bigger uses of the ablative, and I've got like 20 different videos kind of ready to go and stuff like that. Like 20 uses, and this isn't even counting like the smaller ones that aren't necessarily as big and as important. So I mean, it'd be tough to just like sit down and just try to figure out, and we've talked about this, to talk like, well, what use of the ablative is this? I think that it's better to think like, well, what does this ablative show?
Right.
Because then you're looking at like why the ablative is used, rather than trying to classify it in one of these specific uses that are obvious, that for the most part are made after the fact by grammarians, not necessarily people that were even you had Latin as their primary language. So like, what does the ablative show is maybe a better question if you're just reading and just trying to enjoy the ablative. I mean, appreciate the ablative for what it is.
Yeah, I agree. We're obviously, I'm going to go ahead and start. We're obviously getting ready for a specific exam here, but generally, I think, you're totally right. That's more important to be able to understand the ablative. So, but since we're getting ready for this exam, let's look at this. We've given you a sentence. Naves longas ab honorariis navibus removere usit, which is adapted from Caesar. And what we want to know now from you is, do you think this is ablative of agent, ablative of separation, or ablative of means? So some things they can look at, Ben. The ob.
Maybe.
So the ob is a good clue that one of these can't be possible.
Right.
Don't you think?
Yeah, it'll rule it out, rather than like, you might look at that ob though and think, well, obviously that's going to be agent, because ob is what's used for agent, but ob can also be from.
Look how well they did. Look how well they did.
Yeah, agents are used with people and animate objects, and transport ships don't really have minds or thumbs, so they.
Exactly. So who does the usage, kids? Caesar. So Caesar ordered the warships to be moved away from the transport ships. Yeah. All right, they did well on that. So let's take a look at this next one again. Looking at what use of the ablative this would be. So funibus ancoris reliquis amissis. All right, so what would this be? Absolute, description, or specification? So this is kind of a crazy one, because there are 5 ablative words all in a row.
Right, and I think that it's important though to realize that there aren't any words that aren't in the ablative case, right?
That is a big clue for this one, that there are 5 ablative words and no non-ablative words, unless you
So
count the enclitic que.
the que, yeah. So there's maybe no context, or maybe that means that you can treat this this ablative kind of all by itself, like separated out from the rest of the sentence. What's the term for that?
Uh,
Absolutus, I think.
Yes, I was going to
There we
say absolutely. You're absolutely right,
go.
Ben. You should consider this separate from the rest of the sentence. So this is with the ropes and the anchors and the rest of the
Tackle.
riggings,
Yeah.
tackle, whatever, lost from the ships. All right, good job recognizing that absolute. Okay, so we'll take a look at this next one. Fermento nostros prohibuerunt. So we're looking to see if this is means, separation, or manner. So we don't
Keyword
have the
here.
op here.
Yeah, keyword has to be like prohibuerunt. Like, what does that mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it's not an
I believe
ablative
it
absolute.
means, yeah, exactly. Now they're like, is she tricking us? So prohibuerunt, they kept nostros, our guys away. They prohibited. So I think I just gave it away, but they've just got like 10
and
more seconds.
manner probably would require a cum for the most part. Sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, manner can kind of go either way. But let's see how we did. All right, yes, separation again. They kept our guys from grain. All right, let's take a look at this next one. So far, they're doing really well. They must have been really diligent about paying attention to yesterday's live stream. So, materia atque aere ad reficiendas naves ut hebatur. So again, there's a key word here.
You have to use your brain to think of this, though. You have to use your eyeballs.
Yeah.
I do
So
I do like the gerundive phrase though too.
yeah, I just threw that in there. So the ad reficiendas naves is not ablative at all and not the key to figuring out this ablative. Instead, utebatur is what you,
Yeah.
yeah. So this is talking about Caesar, of course, again. So,
How do you spell puff V?
oh, they did
Everyone
great.
knows this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We've taught this several times, so hopefully
Yeah.
they've got it now. So
Okay.
Caesar was using material in bronze to repair his ships. Or materia can also be wood, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Planks of wood. Yeah.
Yeah. Sumo studio administrabatur. So is this specification, description, or manner? So no
This is tougher.
preposition
This one's
again.
tougher. Yeah.
This one is tougher. This one is
All of
tougher.
these can not have a preposition, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in some
And
ways it could be any of them. So you've really got to understand what's going on here, I think.
and at least two are almost always found with an adjective like sumo. So
Yeah. Sumo studio, I think, is typical for this kind of ablative.
yeah.
So it would kind of be my go-to guess, even if I didn't understand what was going on. But luckily, I do. So that's an advantage. So yeah, or it was being administered, it was being managed. Sumo studio with the highest eagerness. So that is how they did it. That was the manner.
Yeah, replace it with like an adverb, like very eagerly, and then that can
Yeah.
help you with manner. Yeah.
All right. Amelitibus administrabatur. So again, this is actually from the same sentence of Caesar that I was adapting, but rather than give them two ablatives at once, which would make it hard to answer the question about which ablative it is, I did just one at a time. So for this one, they now know administrabatur, hopefully. But I think the A is a big clue. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, it means from, right?
Well, it can mean from, and we've seen it to mean from, but of course, the best Latin students know that it can also mean by, especially with a passive verb, and especially when a person is doing the action.
Yeah. So you could think of the ablative agent, by the way, does come from the separative ablative, where you can think of the action coming from the soldiers. So the administrating was coming from the soldiers, and that's why we use ob here, which is a meaning from. But we don't say that in English, so we've got to translate the Latin into English and use by.
So by the soldiers when we're talking about agent. All right. I know some of those people. Virgil is better than Caesar is back. We've seen that name before. All right, so good job to all of our participants, Latin teachers and students. I saw Situla at the top of the list, who is my teaching partner.
Oh,
So I know
really?
there was
Oh,
a
okay.
teacher on there. Yeah, my children early on named her Bucket. And that's what a Situla is.
Does she look like a bucket?
No. It's a long story, but it has nothing to do with her actually.
Okay.
Has
Okay.
to do with my son when he was about 3, kind of being contrary.
Contrary.
Yeah. All right. So you are on the AP Latin live stream, if you didn't realize it, from all the talk of ablative. My name's Jenny Luongo. I teach at St. Andrew's Episcopal School in Austin, Texas, with Lauren Dill, who I believe just might have won that Mentimeter game.
Bucket
Yes,
Dill.
Bucket Dill. My Twitter handle is at Parwa Luongo if you want to tweet at us today.
Yeah, and I'm Ben Johnson. I teach at Hamden Academy, which is a public school in Hamden, Maine, about 2 hours away from the Canadian border. I am at Latin Tutorial. Again, like, tweet at us if you have questions, or if you'd like to engage with us. It doesn't have to be during this live stream. You can ask us questions, and we have had questions, great questions too, after, like, on your own time. This is it's an interesting time, and we're doing this brand new live stream sort of thing for the College Board to help people prepare for a brand new test and everything. So again, we're here to help you if we can, and let's see how that goes. So let's do your homework from last class. So this is the famous bit about the Aquilofer. Where he notices that the soldiers are staying put on their transport ships, and aren't leaving to go and fight the people on the shore. And so he says, "Jump down, guys, if you want to." Unless you want to actually, like, betray this eagle to the enemy, I will do my job. And so then he jumps off the boat and he runs into the enemy, and all of the troops are worried about the eagle maybe getting lost to the enemy, and so they follow suit. And it's a very famous, in all of Caesar, like, this is one of the most famous little bits involving one of his soldiers, and he likes using these anecdotes to explain, like, the individual bravery of the soldier, the bravery of the individual soldier. There you go. Okay, so this was it's a short answer section, so good practice for the AP test coming up. In line 1, adque maris, why are the Roman soldiers hesitating? And that's because the ships are too far away from shore and the water is too deep, and that's maxime propter altitudinem maris. You didn't have to cite the Latin here. It's noticing that it's because of the depth of the sea. Who's the speaker of the words? And that's the Aquilofer of the 10th Legion, he who was carrying the eagle of the 10th Legion. And why is the aquilum in line 3 important to the soldiers? And this is the spirit of the Legion represented in a standard, a golden eagle on top of a stick. And the idea was that the Legion would suffer shame if it is lost or captured by the enemy. And the idea of the eagle factors heavily in some of the book 5 stuff that is on the AP syllabus that you may or may not have read, and it's not covered on this test coming up. But during the disaster with Sabinus and Cotta, the eagle makes its way back to the camp after the disaster, and the guy who is carrying the eagle hurls the eagle over the ramparts as he himself is getting slain by the Gauls there. And they take the eagle, and I believe they bury the eagle in order to make sure that it gets refound, so that the eagle itself doesn't get captured, even if the soldiers end up happening to perish in battle. Like, the eagle is safe.
All right, so continuing on in this passage in lines 4 through 5, hoc through quapit, so hoc cum voce magna dixisset se ex navi proiecit atque in hostes aquilum ferre quapit. What's one of the things that the speaker does after he finishes speaking? So he se proiecit. I love this part. He threw himself off of that ship, and he quapit ferre. He began to carry the eagle in hostes into the enemy lines against the enemy. All right, translate ne tantum de decus admitteretur and the grammatical construction. So lest such a great shame be received or be kind of given up. So that such a great shame might not be allowed, something like that. This is a negative purpose clause. So we've told you that if you see a nay, that's definitely something you should think about. And then finally, give a specific example of how Caesar demonstrates his opinion of the 10th legion elsewhere in the Bellum Gallicum. Well, Caesar's favorite legion is the 10th legion, so he talks about it quite often. The part that is on the syllabus for this year's exam is that he mounted the soldiers of the 10th legion to be his personal bodyguard when Ariovistus demands a parley, a conference without infantrymen. Because Ariovistus wanted his Gallic cavalry to be the people who accompanied him to this meeting with Ariovistus, and Caesar kind of outsmarts him by putting the 10th on horseback. And then the 10th Legion also played a key role during the siege of Alesia in Book 7, which is normally on the syllabus, but not this year.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about Book 4, chapters 27 through 29. We're making our way through Book 4, which is the Roman invasion, the first invasion by Caesar into Britannia. He goes back in Book 5. And we're going to assume that you already know this and you've done this. This is a review, so we'll go rather quickly. We've already talked about the exam practice, and we played that Mentimeter. We're going to give you a question at the end that hopefully will prepare you for what we're going to start off with next live stream.
All right, so as always, you can find resources in the bit.ly/AP Latin YouTube folder. You might want to go ahead and get out all your materials from your class as we work on this section from Book 4 of DBG.
Okay.
All right, so we'll get started in 4.27. We have quite a few questions for this rather short passage.
7's a great number, though. I mean,
7 is ancient numerology. If you're a follower, very important. 7 kings of Rome and such. 7 hills of Rome. All right.
7 ships survived with Aeneas.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Number 1. What is the tense and voice of superati in line 1? So we have hostes proelio superati. Number 2, when did the British ask for peace? Okay, so look for that. Number 3, what 2 things did the British promise to do? And I'll give you guys the hint. Polliciti sunt means they promised. So that'll give you kind of a place to look there. What use of the ablative is cum his legatis in lines 2 through 3. Hopefully you guys know now that there are only 2 possible uses of the ablative that use cum. Number 5, what's the person, number, and tense of demonstraveram in line 3? Number 6, what use of the ablative is a caesare? Look at that, a plus a person, Ben. I wonder what that could be. That's in line 3. And number 7, what had happened earlier to Commius Atrebus? All right. How much time do you think they need?
I don't know, like 10 minutes maybe.
Probably so, but they're going to have to pause the live stream for that.
That's true. So you can control the time. We can't do that. I think that the just to give a little bit of wait time for number 4, the idea of cum there, right? You might look at this cum and think like it means when or something like that, because you're not necessarily paying attention to context and stuff. And even though it comes rather early on in the phrase, it can also introduce an ablative. So, okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, so the tense and voice of superati, having been conquered, having been overpowered, that's a perfect passive participle, that 4th principal part. Number 2, when did the British ask for peace? So simul atque se ex fuga receperunt, as soon as they recovered from their retreat, they sought peace. Statim, immediately. Number 3, what 2 things did the British promise to do? So they promised that they obsides cessedatoros, that they would give hostages. So we've talked about this cultural thing where to ensure that they remain peaceful, they would send kind of sons and daughters of the ruling family or whatever, to make sure that they continue to be good.
I was also reading, like, nowhere in the Gallic War does Caesar actually say that these hostages were ever mistreated either.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the Romans saw this as a way of bringing their own culture to people, and if they got sons and daughters of powerful families and stuff from Gaul, they treated them nicely because it was in their best interest too.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and
In
also
terms of
too, I think nowhere in Caesar does it say that the Romans gave hostages.
right, right.
Yeah. So
All right. So the second thing that they promised was that they would facturos do quae imperasset, what Caesar had ordered them to do. Number 4, what kind of ablative is cum his legatis? Well, that's an ablative of accompaniment. Along with these legates, commius atrebos came. The tense person and number of demonstravorum, it's first person singular pluperfect.
so who's
So
the
this is,
subject?
I was going to say, this is one of the times where Caesar talks about himself in the first person, Caesar the author. So whom I had told about before is basically what he is saying. He doesn't want to confuse Caesar Imperator, the general, with Caesar Auctor, the author.
Which of course shows up two words later, right?
Right, exactly. I like that in the same sentence, he's the first person whom I've talked about before, primissum having been sent in advance into Britain, a Caesare, by Caesar, the ablative agent, in the same. It's so great. I've got to learn to do that about myself. And number 7, what had happened earlier, we learn that Hunk, and navi aggressum, having set out from his ship, comprehenderant, they had arrested him, atque conjecerant, and thrown him in vincula, into chains, which is not how you should treat an agent of Caesar, is what I know, Ben.
Right, especially coming, as Caesar says, in the manner of a speaker, of an orator, not necessarily as a spy or
Right.
an armed combatant. So
Yeah, just terrible stuff.
yeah. Commius is a great character, by the way. If you end up reading the rest of the Gallic War, I think his nose ends up getting cut off. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Some crazy stuff happens to him in book 8. And book 7, because if you've read book 7, because it was originally on the AP exam, you maybe know that Commius kind of changes sides and helps lead the relief force at Alesia. So, okay, so 427, forgiveness asked and given. The Caesar is going to have a little bit to say to these legates and so forth. And so let's look at these questions here. We only have 6 this time. What is the case in use of proelio facto? Notice that there are 2 words there in the ablative case. Then we have this gerundive clause. How is in petenda pace? Line 1 translated. And what is the form of petenda? Whom does say in line 3 refer to? So with say, I always say that to be alliterative, say is always the same as the subject here. So when you see a say, you should look for the subject, and it's the same one. So look for that subject. And how should partem, and I think this should say line 4, be translated in context. So part probably isn't necessarily the best way of doing that there. 5, what is the case in use of paucis diebus, and how is it translated? And then 6, what indications are there that the British are complying with the peace treaty?
So Ben, we've had a couple of people, including a great student named Jared, who's reached out to us before, tweet pictures saying that they're the winner of that Mentimeter. So I think there was a tie at the top.
There can't be a tie. What are you talking about?
It's very exciting. It's very exciting. Everybody had 6, or not everybody, but everybody who got them all right, I think, got 6,000 points. So it's very exciting.
I think if you tie a Latin teacher, then you automatically win.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. All right, shall we take them to the answers?
Yeah, here we go. Okay, so proelio facto is an ablative absolute. So with the battle done, they sent back, and in seeking peace, sought for they brought the blame of this the whole battle onto their multitude, which is a common theme in Caesar, where the Gauls will say that it's not the leader's fault. We're just elected officials, and we had to follow the will of the multitude here. And so they sought.
I thought maybe it was for this matter of arresting Commius, but it's
Oh
not
yeah,
clear.
sorry, yeah. Never mind. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, it's yeah. So they
it's just this thing.
Yeah, it was the transition.
Mm-hmm.
And so they sought forgiveness from Caesar on account of their imprudence of all this. And Caesar complained that, in the in-seeking peace, that is a in-seeking peace, and it's a gerundive there. And so Caesar said, having complained that, although he had sent these people with the legates sent to the continent, he had sought peace, that they had brought on war without cause, and that he said, Dixit, that he would forgive them for their imprudence, and he ordered hostages again. So say here refers to Caesar, and that is the subject of Dixit. Partem partem. So we're talking about the hostages here, of whom they gave some, and that's the first partem, and immediately statem, and others that had been summoned from further away places, they said, dixerunt, that they would give them within a few days. And so we would translate partem partem as some others, which is kind of similar. We saw something like this with in the Aeneid, where we're talking about the Tyrians building Carthage, and we have parse. And we translate that as some of the Tyrians did this and some of them did that. Paucis diebus here, if we translate it as within a few days, is going to be an ablative of time within which, where you can set a limit of time and use the ablative case for that. Meanwhile, they ordered their men to go back into the fields, and chieftains convened from all over, and they began to entrust their states to Caesar. And so this is some indications that the British are complying with the peace treaty.
All right. So his rebus pace confirmata, with peace confirmed by these things, because of these things, whatever. It's one of those ablatives that could be lots of things, right? How many days after Caesar arrived in Britannia did the ships carrying the cavalry set out from the continent? So we're gonna get this kind of drama with the ships now.
Yeah, and earlier on in yesterday, we had the situation where the Romans were able to win in battle. And you win in battle in ancient warfare, you win with your foot soldiers often, and your cavalry is there to kind of chase down the army in their retreat. But Caesar says that they couldn't pursue the enemy very far because they didn't have their cavalry,
which is a major problem for them.
Yeah.
So number 2, what happened when the fleet neared the shore? Number 3, what was the result of this? Number 4, what use of the ablative is magno suo cum periculo in line 6? Number 5, what use of the ablative is fluctibus, also in line 6, near the end though. And then number 6, what use of the ablative is adversa nocte in line 7?
Keyword there being nocte, right?
Yeah, nocte. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Some big clues on those ablatives. All right. So we learn that Caesar, after Caesar arrived in Britain, it was postiem quartem, on the 4th day that the ships set out from the continent. Number 2, what happened when the fleet neared the shore? Suddenly, tanta tempestas subito coorta est. A great storm arose, quae cum ad propinquarent Britannia, when they were approaching Britain. And
how great was it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And viderentur, they were seen from the camp, so they got excited that they were coming, but then this storm arose.
How great a storm?
Tanta tempestas, such a great storm. So great a storm.
I don't think it's like that.
Number 3, what was the result of this? The storm was so great that which is a big clue that we're dealing with a result clause here. So the question was trying to kind of clue you into that. And I should have given you that clue.
That's what I was trying to do there. How great it was, so great that
it was so great that so nulla earum, none of them posset were able tenere cursum, to hold their course, said, but some were thrown back or were carried back, referentur, to the same place, unde erant profecti, from where they had set out, and then alii, others, de icerentur, were thrown down ad inferiorem partem insulae, to the lower part of the island, quae est propria solis occasim, which is nearer the west, the setting of the sun. And then what is the ablative of magno suo cum periculo? They were thrown down with like great danger to them, to themselves. So this is an ablative of manner, because of the cum is how we were taking it.
Kind of replaces an adverb, like very dangerously or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we learn that some of these ships that were driven to the west, with their anchors thrown out, ancoris iactis complerentur, they were filled fluctibus, with waves, so with water, basically. So with complerentur, that takes an ablative of means. They were filled by the waves. All right, and so then we learned that those ships, peti erunt, sought the continent, sought the mainland, adversa nocte, like in the night, in the adverse night. In other words, it wasn't the best time to be sailing, but they had to seek the continent then, necessario, because of the necessity. All right, are we ready for the next set?
I think we are. So no questions here and much bigger words. So we must be doing something different with this.
Yeah, something different.
So the tides of Britain. So I want you guys to look at this. We're going to do a pair deck with this, but we're going to do it. I made some pictures, so and I want you guys to determine. And the pictures go in order, and so hopefully it'll tell a story.
And they are masterpieces. I'm here to tell you, they're really good.
We'll see. I mean, I'm not selling them, so please don't ask. Okay, let me take this down.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put up that pair deck for you guys, although I'm going to have to switch off of the Mentimeter. There we go. Okay, so here's the pair deck that you guys will want to join, so that you can take part in this exploration of the artistry of Ben Jonson. You can do so by going to joinpd.com and typing in these 5 letters, UWILQ. And the mnemonic today is underwhelmed watermelons inspect lovely quizzes. I guess this is kind of a quiz.
Oh yeah, definitely. No winners this time though. So
no winners. Everyone's will get 100.
A winner. There we go.
Everyone's a winner, of course. And not very high stakes.
And if you don't get 100, then it's probably my fault. The drawing's probably not very good.
No. The drawings are quite fantastic. You're going to be very excited to see these when we get to them. So just a reminder that once I do start the pair deck, you can still use those 5 letters to get in, even if you're joining a little bit late. So UWILQ are the letters, and you can go to joinpd.com. So I think we shall go ahead and get started, just because we don't want to run out of time today. So you're going to select the Latin phrase that best describes each picture. And again, it's UWILQ at joinpd.com. All right. So you have some multiple choice that you'll get if you kind of scan over. You might want to look carefully at this picture. I don't want to say Latin words, although I'm so tempted to, because this picture is just so evocative of Caesar's words.
It's a block of circular cheese
Yeah,
on a mat of coal or something like that, right?
Yeah, there seems to be some sort of circular object on a gray background. So we'll see what they're thinking.
Oh, it was way
Eadem
too easy. Way
nocte,
too easy.
on the same night, accidit ut, it happened that. So we've got a clause of result, a substantive clause of result, but on the AP exam, you can just put it that it's a clause of result. On the same night, it happened that Luna esset plena, the moon was full. They got your picture. All right. So we've got another one of Ben's masterpieces here. So you can see there's blue at the bottom, gray at the top. There seems to be an object with something sticking out. So see
Looks
if
like
you
some of
can
the
figure
blue,
it.
right? Some of the blue is maybe over the thing.
Yeah,
Whatever it is.
yeah, it does seem to be inching up on whatever that is. All right, let's
What
see.
you can't see is that thing is really long, right?
Yeah, yeah. So this is challenging
It
because
was.
we've got the tide had filled the warships Longas Naves, which a lot of people have chosen, but we've also got the storm was battering the transport ships. So which were you going for? This is a challenging one.
I was thinking about the tide, right? Because the water was so high on those boats, right?
Okay.
Instead of the rain coming down, lower the storm and the winds and so forth, definitely going with the tide.
Okay. Well, I
I
understand why
mean,
so many people put A though.
yeah, I know. I saw
That
that and I
was
was thinking like, oh no, that's not good.
Yeah, that's a challenging one. All right. So now we've got objects hurling through space. No, no,
In
I don't
fact,
think that's.
this is what came out of my oven when I was making cookies.
Ah. Okay. So we've got these objects, and some appear to be broken. Ben.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, I
Hmm.
mean, that's what happens when you cook cookies too long.
Yeah.
They split apart. Yeah.
That is what I've heard. All right. Let's see how we're doing. Cum pluribus navibus fractis, with several ships broken. I think that is what happened, although that often happens to cookies as well. I can see again why the storm was battering like the
Well,
transport ships
I mean,
was
those are
the
definitely there are
distractor.
definitely some warships right there, though. I mean, you look at
Okay, so you think
there
they
are some
were
transport ships and there are some warships.
okay? All right,
Yeah,
all right. Okay, so now a symbol, perhaps, rather than a picture, for you guys to interpret.
I was thinking maybe a question mark, like, but I mean, I went with the circle with a line through it.
With the times that we're in right now, that blue looks like a toilet paper roll to me. I'm not gonna lie.
It's
But
made of metal. Trust me, it's made of metal. It's like
okay,
a pulley, I think.
okay, all
Okay.
right, all right.
Yeah.
So we'll give them another minute or so. Okay, so funibus ancoris reliquis armamentis amissis. So we talked about that ablative absolute actually earlier
Mm-hmm.
in the live stream. So with their ropes, anchors, and the rest of their riggings
Tackle.
lost, I think is probably what you were going for with
Yeah.
the Xing out. Yeah.
And we threw down the ships were tied had been tied to anchors. Of course, there are no ships being tied to anchors right there because
Right.
there are no anchors, right?
Yeah. No, no, no. I saw the line. I saw the line.
Okay.
Okay. This is my favorite. Obviously, an homage to the Scream, but in Roman military garb, I
This
believe.
is a centurion, right? Of course. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Caesar probably knows his name.
Uh-huh. Uh, we hope. Speramus.
Yeah.
We hope. Um, so yeah, I like the colors in the background too. I told you I liked the watercolor uh,
Oh yeah,
imagery
yeah.
here.
I'm experimenting.
Yes, yes, yes.
I call this my my green phase.
Okay, okay. All right. So magna perturbatio. A great disturbance, facta est, happened. A great disturbance, totius exercitus,
Of the whole force, is that right?
Of the whole army. That also makes sense, and I'm glad that in your green phase that was the green answer.
Yeah.
This is all worked out.
Yes, yeah.
All right, let's see what we've got next.
One more, I think.
Okay, so now clearly a map, well labeled.
Yep.
Britannia et Gallia, and more symbolism.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I thought maybe go with a bigger X there, like thicker strokes, but it was time for me to be done with this. So my kids were complaining, so I had to go with the thin stroke. Yeah. That's okay. But there's a big X, right? A big X over that ship. That's a transport ship.
All right.
I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that clears it up, hopefully, for them.
Hopefully.
That it's a transport ship. All right. Let's see how we're doing. So we have enim for naves erant alii, for there were no other ships quibus by which possent they were able reportari to be carried back. So yeah, I think that was a good choice on their part. What do you think?
I think that's right. Yeah. The others are like, they have to stay in for winter in and let's see, longships by which he had taken care for the army to be transported, and there was no opportunity given to our guys for help or managing the situation. Yeah, I think that's the best one.
All right, they have done well on artistic interpretation. That's the art history portion of the AP Latin exam. So now we'll move on to wrapping things up for the day.
I think we found a new question type, don't you?
Yeah, I think we just need to persuade the writers and leadership. Yeah,
we'll get Trevor Packer, right? I mean, that would make the AP Latin test like the funnest test out of all the tests.
For sure.
Okay. So we told you that we were going to finish up our review of the ablative today. So that is this. We have 7 of the other big ablative uses. Some of these are on the course description. Others are super common, so common that they don't need to be on that list in order to be important to know. So we start off with the ablative of agent, which you've seen here, and that's where the ablative shows the doer or the source of a passive action used with the preposition ob. We translate ob with by, and the example here is they are being attacked ob hostibus by the enemy. You can also use an ablative after a comparative adjective or adverb in place of a quam phrase. So often early on in Latin, you learn that quam means than and is used with comparisons. Well, you can also use the ablative too. And so like kitius dicto, which we saw in the Aeneid, more swiftly than his word, or also another more just quo, than whom. Both of those are from the Aeneid. The ablative of degree of difference is not something that you see very often, but it does show up, especially in Caesar, and it shows the degree of difference in comparisons. And so it's often treated as an adverb in translation if you want, but it is technically an ablative, and you can use it the translation of by, like in this example, cum palo longius acastris processus set, when he advanced a little further from the camp, or when he advanced further by a little bit from the camp. And then also we've talked about the ablative description, where the ablative gives a description of a noun used with an adjective, kind of like the genitive of description, translated with or of. Immani magnitudine simulacra habent, they have statues of immense size or with immense size.
All right, we'll wrap up our ablative review with that ablative of time within which that we were talking about. 2 words in the ablative, usually a time word, and it can be translated within. So the ablative of time when, I think we talked about yesterday, which was like on the 3rd day or on this very day. This would be rather paucis diebus, within a few days, or tribus diebus, within 3 days. I tell my students to look for the cardinal number rather than the ordinal number sometimes with ablative of time within which.
Yeah, that's good.
Ablative of specification does not use any sort of preposition. It usually gets translated in, and it shows the respect in what respect something was done. So they differ. Linguis institutis legibus we saw back in DBG Book 1. They differ in respect to languages, customs, and laws. And then the ablative of cause is often the one that I tell my students, if they can't figure out any other ablative, think about whether it could mean because of something. And it comes in super handy. Maybe in Latin 1, you learned that the ablative could mean with, by, from, or in. Well, add because to that. So notis omnibus vadis, because all the shallow places were known by the British, it made it easier for them in that particular battle that we were reading about.
Okay.
All right. Are we ready to go to their learning opportunity? No, not time for learning opportunity yet. Almost there.
So we don't have all time today to talk about this, but we will talk about this tomorrow in the beginning part. So we want to talk about the genre of Caesar and his commentaries. And so think about what characteristics of the commentary that we see in his writing and how he uses the commentarius genre for his own political gain, and think about both the style of his work as well as its intended audience and purpose. And this is kind of quasi homework. We'll talk about this tomorrow. And then here is your learning opportunity. This is a passage from 427, talking about 2 different diplomatic missions, one before and one after the military conflict between the Romans and the Britons. Contrast the first mission and its outcome with the second mission and its outcome.
All right, so as always, you don't need to write down all of those words. You can find in the resource folder at bit.ly/AP Latin YouTube, your practice, your homework assignment, closed translation, lots of links. I'll also put up today's Pear Deck and maybe the Mentimeter for you to practice with later. You can leave us feedback at the Padlet or on Twitter, no worries. And then also don't forget, if you need resources or internet connectivity, to go to cb.org/tech. Thank you guys so much for being with us today and reviewing the ablative, and we'll see you tomorrow for more fun.
Thank you guys.
Valete omnes.
Valete.